Good morning, students. Learners, can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me? Am I audible? Hello, guys? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. So good morning, guys. I will be taking you for today's session on English. So as you can see, I am Anele, that is taking you for this lesson for today. So let's start. We're going to be doing something on reading and viewing. So what is important for here to understand is that number one, you need to understand assessment standards, which is about for you to explore and explain features of text and how they contribute to meaning. Secondly, to identify and explain the structure and the language usage around this. So basically today we are all about reading. So our theme for today is about falling in love with reading. So number one, reading and writing is one of the same WhatsApp group thing. So if you want to master these, you need to set your mind into that, which will set a good academic career for you. Now at grade 11, grade 12, and your first year, you would see how important it is to be able to read and write. So one would then ask, why is this necessary? So our content is written in text so that we need that skill of how to read and make meaning of what we read. So whatever that we read, it's in writing and it's in text. So we need to understand how that happens. So, and again, I understand the difficulties of language, that some of us are not first English speaking language efficient or proficient, but there is a solution on how to go about doing that. And as we talk about this idea of what reading and writing looks like, but today the focus is mostly on reading. Am I clear there? So again, there are specific careers that are very, very key on allowing you to be able to read and write, but you can talk about that later around what we mean of these careers, that reading and writing is very important. In all careers, you'll realize that reading and writing is very key. But for those ones who are later, which I think by now we have started thinking about your careers of what to do when you go to university. For those who are journey into issues or into studies of journalism, literature, English, psychology, political science, and all of those things, you would begin to understand how useful this tool would be for you to be able to read and write. So I want us to think about what are the kind of senses that we use when we read. Senses, I mean by that we use our visuals so that we can see the stimulus in terms of what we are reading, the words of what we need to write or make meaning out of it. So our eyes are very, very important. I'm quite aware that there are other forms of reading, but today I want us to use our understanding of using our eyesight to be able to read the context and the text that we are reading. Am I still clear, guys? Okay. So one, we need to understand the while reading activities that are defined as activities that help you to focus on aspects of the text and to understand the text quite better. So the while reading activities are part of the 3 stages that a reading lesson has. One is pre-reading activity, that is, why should we do pre-reading? So when we do pre-readings, we get an idea of familiarizing ourselves with what is needed of us to be able to read and make sense of that. So the while listening activities and the post listening activities. But for today, I want us to focus on the reading activities. So there are some examples of while reading activities. Number one, this is just to give you an understanding and background of reading and what do I mean in relation to while reading activities. So number one, you identify topic sentences, that is the main ideas within the paragraph of what you are reading. And remember that every paragraph usually includes a topic sentence that identify the main idea of the paragraph. Keep that in mind. Secondly, it is to distinguish between general and specific ideas. So if you want to know what I mean, you can have a look at different ideas online of what this looks like. And number three, you identify the connectors to see how they link ideas with the text. For a full linking of words, have a look at online examples. Then number four, you need to check whether or not predictions and guesses are confirmed. You might start with one of your own pre-reading activities. Probably can do that after this lesson. And number five, you scheme a text for specific information. So when you scheme a text, you give yourself an understanding of trying to locate the main ideas within which you are reading using the reading strategies that will help you to become more efficient readers. So this is a 5 steps that are essential, that are part of what I'm talking about. And number 6, you answer literal and inferential questions. That is, literal simply refers to what the text says, and inferential is using the text as a starting point to get a deeper meaning. This is self-explanatory. So what is important here is that you need to make sense and to get a starting point to get a really better understanding of what you are reading. But we'll do different kinds of text that will assist you to make sense of that. And then number 7 is that you infer the meaning of new words using context. That is, all language learners rely on context to decipher the meaning of the word. Reading strategy quite used a lot when you are doing extensive reading. Then another thing we look at is coding, which involves you learning a method of imagine marking so that you can place a question mark next to a statement, then don't understand, or an exclamation mark next to something that surprises you. Another aspect of it is learner-to-learner conversation. That is, you can have a Zoom conversation after this when you have finished a paragraph or a stanza of a poem, or you can clear up any confusion that you might have. So again, you scan a text for a specific information. So when you do that, you can scan when looking for a favorite show listed in the TV guide, and when you look at your friend's phone number, and etc. Am I still clear, guys? Cool. So now, when you read a text, or when you read a book or a newspaper or what, there's an important rule that I want you to keep in mind. And this rule is that different texts, it could be newspaper, it could be a book, it could be an article, it requires a different style of reading. So what this means, how I read a newspaper article is different from how I read a textbook, from how I read a novel, and all of these other things that I'm going to explain to you. So for example, we know we have magazines, textbooks, as you can see on the slides, which I'll send you to get a better understanding of what I mean. So one of the ways of thinking about a text could be newspaper, textbook, as I've explained. So how do you notice that a different text requires a different kind of reading? And what are the main features? So one of the things I wanted to keep in mind is that according to the 3 forces is that the feature article and the characteristics that make it different from other types of articles is found in newspapers. So right, so feature article, I'll explain what that, and its characteristics that make it different from other types of articles found in newspapers. So for those, again, who've got a very strong interest in journalism, there's provocative journalism, there's quite a range of journalism kind of ideas and courses that you can take for those who are interested in this. So the journalists and editors interviewed in this lesson emphasize that feature articles, while still based on facts, are no longer and more expressive. So it's just a feature, that takes you to a particular kind of a topic that you need to understand. So again, the journalists also indicate how this has an impact on the style of the articles and the kind of the subject matter that is suitable. This reiterates for the learners that the newspaper is made of a variety of text written with different intentions and different readers in mind, which speaks to that thing which I highlighted, that whenever you read a particular text in the newspaper or a book, you read it with a particular lens or a particular prism because it communicates a particular thing. So after viewing these lessons, you may want to get to read a range of feature articles and write a feature article on a topic of your choice. And in relation to this, I want you to write your own feature article that you can send it to me on the email address that I'll send you, or on my DMs, or anything that works best for you. That the topic would be about what is your psychological understanding of the extension of lockdown? Simply put, I want to get your understanding of the extension of the lockdown, mostly as to how do you feel, or how does that make you feel? Am I clear? So the idea is to write about the lockdown and the extension of the lockdown and what it means for you as an individual, as to how did it impact you psychologically, socially, and otherwise. And probably it may be ideal to narrow it down to thinking about how does extended lockdown affects your academic plans, right? So you can choose lockdown in terms of the broad spectrum around what it means for a country, for individuals, but mostly I would be interested to understand of how does this extension of lockdown relates for you and in terms of your own personal experience. So I really, really want you to do that. And I'll send you my details on the screen so that you may be able to send me that. I can give you feedback, and this can help you a lot as you prepare for your exams and many other writings that you've got to do, which I really want to encourage that you start cultivating the culture of reading and writing. I understand that again, what I highlighted around the issues and complexities of language proficiency and all of that. Start cultivating that culture. And if you want my feedback, I'm always there and open to assist you to get a better understanding of that. So the extension of the coronavirus thing, I've explained it. And I will also send you an example of an article that reports on this that was written by President Cyril Ramaphosa. So I want you to do these activities so that you can start thinking about the ways in which you can improve your writing style and your engaging style of engaging with text, right? I want us to go back a bit. So what I really, really want you to understand, as I've explained, is that this is an example of a text, right? So this is a text written in a particular way. So what you find in this text and how it's written, what you do then when you read it, it's not going to be like your textbook. This is a book by Eusebius Makeza, which reads as a Bantu in my bathroom. So for those who have a very strong interest in reading, you can start reading this text. But I understand there are prescribed texts for you, that is textbooks and reading materials that you can use to start thinking about this reading and writing. So I'll read an example of this book, one chapter, which is touching on so this is the example that I want you to just keep in mind. It says, writing is one of the most self-indulgent activities. Anyone who has the audacity to even attempt to write a book is either shamelessly arrogant or blissfully stupid. It takes a huge creative effort and discipline that's it's in short in age of Twitter and Facebook. So what this text means, it definitely means that for you to be able to put your thoughts in writing in terms of a book, it requires a different kind of skill. It requires a different kind of way of reading and writing. He continues to say that books reflect your inner guts in ways that don't fully control. Even works of fiction, perhaps fiction more than so non-fiction, are nuggets of confessions about your true self. That's where the stupidity comes in. Writing necessarily means putting a part of your private self out there for affirmation, criticism, engagement, ridicule, and judgment. But when your thoughts have been decently thought through and carefully sculpted, the rewards are immense. I remember the pride I felt when I first saw a full essay of mine in print in the very edition of the Wheel Weekender, a brilliant Saturday newspaper that was prematurely shut down by its owners. I was sitting at a table at service station in Melville, Johannesburg, having breakfast with a friend when I realized the person at the table next to me was reading none of Eusebius Marquez's reading. So this is a kind of reading that says, it helps us to understand how you read and how you write. And before you get to the point of writing, you need to have a better understanding of what are you reading and better make sense of it. Another example of another text, this is similar to what Eusebius Marqueza wrote, this book that you have to be gay to know God. And again, this is another text that is different, and in the way that it's written, it's similar to what Eusebius Marqueza wrote about. So this again is written from a point of personal experience, personal understanding about the subject he's writing about. And again, the title of what you are reading will guide you as to what is the content of what's entailed inside, so that when you read with the guideline of the title, but the title guides you to the contents page, and the contents page will help you to understand what do you read under each and every chapter or under each and every section, so that you have a better understanding. But what I want you to take out of today's lesson is the whole art of reading. And if you are able to read, it will be easier for you to do things around comprehension and to be able to pull out the necessary text in your comprehension and able to pull out what is necessary that you are asked to do in there. And now we do this. This is a textbook, right? This is a textbook on psychology, as an example. How this book is written and how you read it, it's different because it is about teaching and educating you to have a better understanding of what are you reading. So as you would know, in all your textbooks, there is a structure of how the textbook goes about and how it looks like. For instance, you've got your contents page and different aspects of what you are expected. And what you would see when you read a textbook, usually it would have an introduction, it will have the outcomes. So for instance, I'll take you through this. If you were to read a textbook of this nature, first it tells you that the aim of this chapter is to introduce this book by indicating some of the questions that confront a society such as ours, which is the books deal with. Sketching the context of the book, summarizing the sections and chapters in the book. So what you'll find, and again an example, it says this chapter has 6 objectives. The first objection is to examine a story and to ask how we make sense of this and other stories. Secondly, the chapter contemplates what social psychology is about, not only a few definitions of the subdisciplines and identifying very briefly some of the problems implicit in some of the notions of these definitions deployed. So this is a textbook which you read differently compared to the previous books that I have given you. And now we come to a newspaper article that includes both opinion pieces and what I have highlighted earlier. So for instance, that it speaks about, I'll look for a simple paragraph which speaks to the story of Professor Mayosi, who had committed suicide, but also I want just one specifically is on students were vandals of soul. It reads as follows. This is a personal opinion piece that reports on something. It says, hashtag fees must fall students vandalized the soul of the University of Cape Town Health Sciences. Dean Professor Bongani Mayosi, his sister, told mourners at his funeral yesterday. And the cardiologist's wife, Professor Nonhlanhla Khumalo, said her husband, you are cared so deeply for people who now treated you as enemy. So Mayosi suffered from depression and committed suicide. This week, doctors and medical students spoke to the Sunday Times about their journey through a black hole. We work ridiculously long hours and goodwill is exploited by our employers and we are unsupported by our regulatory bodies. So the aspect that I've just read is about a personal opinion piece that was written just after this incident and people are reporting on their experiences. But what you find here on Sunday Times, there are different things. You find business news, you find sports news, you find content that reports on psychosocial political matters that relate to that. Then we have what we call an academic article. When you do your grade 12 and you do your first year, when you get to university, there's a particular kind of text that you read. It's called a journal article. So in a journal article, it has a topic, it has an abstract, the abstract that gives you an idea of what you are reading so that by the time you read the article, you have a better understanding of what are you reading and what are you trying to pull from that. So this one, it speaks about what is there to learn about violence and masculinity. So the abstract that it gives you the background, it says, in light of the global health burden of violence, which is predominantly perpetuated by men, studies have explored the relationship between masculinities and violence. However, there is relative lack of work focusing on men and masculinities in relation to violence. Such work has the potential to advance violence prevention work. And then it gives you the objectives, it gives you what was done, and it gives you the conclusion to say, the article shows that resisting and reformulating masculinity is non-violent way is a complex process. This suggests that violence prevention efforts need to focus on the creation of spaces of ongoing dialogues and about non-violence. So this is a different kind of a text or an article, academic article that you can read to make sense again of using all of these skills that I've highlighted as a way of how you go about doing reading and later potentially about writing. Then there is a magazine, which is a magazine. It's about people who are contributing different types of text, and those texts help us to better understand the content and the information that we are reading. So in summary or in conclusion, I want you to keep in mind that when you read, you need to have an understanding of what you are reading about, be able to pull the material, the content, the facts, evidence of what is written so that you are able to respond to the questions if you are then asked to do. So before you write an essay, for an example, or before you write the piece that I asked you to do, you cannot just write from your personal opinion that is not informed by what you have read or what you have research on what the topic is about. So if you are about to write about the extension of the lockdown and the impact of what it has had on you and on your academic life, what is important, number one, is to ask yourself, what is the topic? Broadly, the topic that you're asked to write about is about the extension of the lockdown. Why do we have the lockdown? We have the lockdown because of the COVID-19. And what has the COVID-19 done across the globe? And why in South Africa specifically, the president spoke of the need of the lockdown. One, it is to lower the curve of people getting infected with the coronavirus. It is to maintain social distancing. That is to make sure that we are all well and healthy. So that is probably the what that has led to all of this. And the how part of how you go about responding to that is you need to read. So you can get your sources from the newspaper articles that mostly are written about coronavirus, extension of lockdown. You can look at the political side of what the COVID-19 has done. You can look at the psychological side of what the COVID-19 has done. As a learner, you can look at the possible consequences and the problems of the lockdown that it has on the education system and what it would do later for your matric and for those who are writing matric and for you and all of that. So having an ability to read, it helps you to synthesize your information. It helps you to have a better understanding. So when you are asked to write an essay, you know what is the problem, why is it the problem, how is it a problem, and why and how can it be solved to be a problem. So you need to have that synthesis in your ability to read and write at the end of the day. We will get to the nuances of writing, how you write, sentence construction, and everything else that comes with that. So that's exactly that which I wanted you to keep in mind, writing and to have the ability to use your visual sense to audios to be able to gather the information. That's a different kind of reading, or a different kind of learning. So all of those things, you need to understand that there's a difference between visual reading, which is reading is mostly about reading the content or the text, making sense out of it, being able to make meaning out of it, and being able to write about it. So for the sake of time, we are left with about a few minutes. And so I really, really want to speak to the idea again as a matter of closing the session, of saying that I understand most people don't like reading because sometimes reading is boring. We have an opportunity of these days of reading online text. We have an opportunity of reading News 24 on our iPads, on our laptops, and all of that. That is still a form of visual engagement with the text using digital resources. But for some people like me who prefer to have a real copy so as to be able to engage with it. So there are different ways of engaging with reading and writing. You need to find the best way that works for you. But in high school, grade 11 and grade 12, I really, really encourage learners to start reading text, hard copies of textbook, of newspapers, of any text that you can read and make sense of. And then lastly, as I said, there is quite a number of courses that really cultivate the culture of reading, as I've highlighted journalism, as I've highlighted psychology, because in those things you really, really, really read and write. And when you get to varsity, you would see how important it is to master the skill of reading and writing, because it is all about reading. It is all about writing, especially for those ones who are interested in being authors, in being linguists, in people who do literature and everything that has to do with reading and writing. So you can go on to my social media handles. You can see there, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook. So catch me there with all your questions and I'll answer that. And I hope you have a great day. Are there any questions? Thumbs up if you're all happy. Great. And I would like you to give me feedback. It was my first time here, and I hope and looking forward to engaging with you in the future. All the best and enjoy the culture of reading and keep on doing the things about reading and writing. Cheers. Bye.